This is the concierge, sir.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Concierge Confidential. I'm your host, Brian Ortega, and in today's episode, we're going to be kind of recapping my vacation that I went to California, but it is going to tie into Las Vegas, I promise. But it's going to talk about what kind of a traveler are you, and also Vegas has a nightlife problem, and I think we need to figure out how to fix it because I don't know. It just feels like Vegas in general, doesn't know how to really create a cool experience without being the most corporate thing possible. So we will be recapping that coming up next. Okay, everybody, so let's just kind of get into it now. So I did go to California. I ended up going to Hollywood. I saw the movie The Odyssey at the Chinese Theater, which I purchased a ticket for that over, a year ago. And it was awesome. I won't be doing a review of the movie. If you want, you can check it out on my Instagram, Brian_Ortega26, if you want a review of the movie. But I think it was actually a good thing because, I do a show about Las Vegas and traveling here. And I think it's good for, me to travel a little bit to see what it's like from your perspective of coming to a city and sort of seeing its challenges. And I think, and I go to Los Angeles quite a bit, so I kind of know or understand the city a little bit more than someone who's never been there before. The cool thing about Vegas, I do have to say, is that you can come to Vegas without a car and totally get around. I think that's actually the one thing you have to know when you go to a new city is understanding the transportation situation. The airport is very close to the Las Vegas Strip, and even if you're going downtown, it ends up being like a 20-minute ride, 25-minute ride. Really, it's not a huge lift. Obviously, if you're going to be going to local parts of town, you obviously should rent a car. And our rent-a-car center is actually fantastic because it's exactly in one location. So it's very similar to the Burbank airport where all of the rent-a-car companies are in the same area. It is very different than LAX, for example. LAX, you'd have to go, they have different lots that you have to go to, and they do have a shuttle that goes there. But, it is not the easiest. But I do like that Las Vegas does have a very easy rent-a-car situation. Even though, yes, you still have to get on a bus. But once you get there, that is where all of the rent-a-cars are located. Burbank's actually pretty cool because it is connected to the airport, so it's actually quite easy to get in and out of. But, the pricing can be, expensive for sometimes or some days. So you just got to, be wary of that. So I do think that when you do fly into cities, it is important to know, where you're going to go. Las Vegas, fortunately, only has one airport. But if you're flying into places like Chicago or New York or Los Angeles, it's important to note that there are multiple airports for certain cities. Like New York, I know it can be one of those things do you go to LaGuardia? Do you go to JFK? Do you fly into the New Jersey airport? It's a whole thing. And honestly, I have no idea how that works just because I've only flown into New York maybe 2 or 3 times in my life. So I'd have to, look into it. I know Chicago has its 2 airports. Los Angeles, I'm a little bit more familiar with. So you have LAX, which typically has the most flights coming in and out of. It's pretty easy to book a flight to get into Los Angeles from Las Vegas. Same thing with Burbank. Burbank is a great airport to go to if you are going or staying anywhere near the northern part of the Los Angeles area. So you're thinking, Beverly Hills, Hollywood, Santa Monica, Pasadena even, sort of that northern part. LAX is a little bit more centrally located. And then you have the Santa Ana Airport or the Orange County Airport, which is basically the airport you use to go to if you're going to Disneyland. You can also get to Disneyland from the LAX airport as well, but the one in Orange County tends to be, a little less busy. So that's the one we usually use. So needless to say is that the cool thing about Vegas, you don't need a car. For Los Angeles, definitely need a car. It's honestly, you can't do a Los Angeles trip without a car. And let's get into sort of how we planned this out. So I bought my tickets, and again, this is sort of like one of those planning episodes for your trip to Las Vegas, and what kind of planner you are. But I bought my tickets for this movie a year ago. So this is just like anything, like if you bought concert tickets for a show in Las Vegas, you purchase this pretty far in advance. So you've kind of like decided this is where you're coming for the show. This is where the tickets were least expensive, than like a place where you were living. So now this becomes like a trip. That's totally awesome. I think that's actually one of the best ways to plan trips is around an event, because it actually really locks you in to going on that date at that time, and you know it pretty far in advance. So this is a really great way of getting you to a place. I like to go to LA, every, once a year, maybe twice a year for like if I'm going to Disneyland with my family, and then, also doing like a movie event. So that's kind of become my thing, is where I go to Los Angeles for a movie. It's usually like a 3-day trip, usually one day, like one half day for travel, and then kind of something to do at nighttime, a full day of doing the movie, and then whatever else I was doing, and then the day to get back. So it's like a 3-day trip. So I planned this out a year in advance. And really, it doesn't have to be like a super daunting thing. You bought your tickets. Honestly, I would say you shouldn't buy your airline tickets until probably about, 3 or 4 months out. And the reason I say this is it differs for everybody. If you're going to places like Europe, for example, or you're coming to Vegas from Europe, you obviously have to book your tickets way further in advance than just a couple of months. But if you are going to be doing, it always depends on sort of how far you are from your location. It's best to kind of get an idea of how expensive those flights are going to be. Further out, obviously, because those will typically go up as you get closer and closer and closer. So it really comes down to how you want to book this trip. And again, the two most expensive things that are going to be on your trip are going to be your flights, if you have to take a flight, and your hotel. The cool thing about, for example, I stay with Marriott's because I work with a Marriott company. I work for a Marriott company. Let's just say that for sure. So I get Marriott discounts, which is really great. So I have kind of the luxury of being able to wait a little bit less. And also, the cool thing about Marriott's in general, this is for anybody who, travels with Marriott, is that you don't have to put any money up front when you book a reservation, which is actually fantastic. And I believe you usually have up to a day or 2 days, and sometimes 3 days before you have to cancel, or 3 days before the check-in, because then it charges you. So, sorry, I'm messing with the microphone here. So I actually booked because I was just checking every day, I actually booked my hotel about 2 months out. I would say is what 2.5 months out at a certain price. And then, which I believe was in Glendale, was where I was actually going to be staying. And then a week out, I was just checking in, and I found a hotel that was cheaper and closer to the location that I was going to be at, next to Hollywood Boulevard. And I actually booked that for a lesser price, but a much higher valet nightly rate. But it was closer to the location that we wanted to be at, which was next to the Chinese theater. So we were able to book it, cancel the other one, and then have our hotel room. So that was one way to do it. I know when you're coming to Las Vegas, you don't always have that luxury. The tough part about visiting Las Vegas is that you do have to put a credit card down and money down, like a deposit, when you are booking your hotel in Las Vegas. So I know that that's not always a cheap thing to do, but it is one of those things you have to deal with when you're coming to town. So as we're kind of, you've booked your hotel, you've booked your flight, and you're coming to the city. And how much should you plan? So really, there's 3 types of people when they come anywhere. So I sort of put this together as me and my other 2 brothers who have their families that they plan for when they go on vacation. I have me that I plan for when I go on vacation. So when my oldest brother goes on vacation, he has 3 kids. He is very, very meticulous in terms of what they are doing that day. They have an itinerary out. They have what they're doing basically every single hour that they are there on their vacation, which usually this works for some people. Usually the one person planning it is the one person who sticks to the schedule. And that is what they do. They stick to the schedule from this day, this day, this day, and this day, and they plan it out, and that is what they do. Very much sticking to the itinerary. They will not go to a place that was not found before they got to that location. That's just the way that my brother does it, my oldest brother. That's how he plans his trips. My middle brother is definitely on the other spectrum. They will, for example, let's just say they're going to Disneyland. They will somewhat have plans when they get there. And as things pop up, as they get hungry, they will find places to eat. They'll go to Target if they need to. My middle brother, and I can say this to his face, is notorious for going on vacation and then having to go to Target. Like that is, which most people don't want to do that. My oldest brother will not do that. I typically will not end up going to Target on a vacation, especially if I don't need anything, of course. Like if I need hair gel, which that's very much a thing that I always end up needing, or like deodorant, it's always something I forget. If it's not able to find in the gift shop, then I will not be going to get it. Obviously, if it's a 7-day vacation and I need deodorant, I will find a convenience store. But usually the things that I forget are things that you can find in the gift shop at the hotel. My brother will always go, and they will always have to find like a hair straightener or like more clothes or a bathing suit or crazy things. So my middle brother definitely lives a much more chill, laid back vacation lifestyle, which many people do. And that is what my brother does. Of course, me being me, I think my version is the best, but I think it works best for what I do, which I travel alone usually. And I'm a little bit more, I can do it a little bit, I can travel a little bit more free, knowing that I have more flexibility. When you have kids and when you have like partners and that kind of thing, you do have to sometimes stick to a schedule because I think that works best for people, especially families. I think families, you definitely have to have somewhat of a set design or schedule because that's the easiest way to keep, your kids, one in front of you. But also I think it does help sort of like setting out the day that this is what we're going to do and being able to explain this to the rest of the family. I can kind of go with how I'm feeling that day, but I do like to have sort of a plan because I do like to think that I am somewhat of a planner, and I hate to be caught off guard. I hate to go to restaurants without reservations, so I like to have somewhat of a plan. So about halfway through me wanting to go to Los Angeles for this movie experience, I asked my mom, I was like, hey, Mom, do you want to come to Vegas? Do you want to come to Hollywood with me? So she said yes. So now I had, my mom was going to be there. I was going to be there. So how are we going to do this? My mom definitely likes to think she is a planner, but when she is with me, she knows she doesn't really have to plan things. I usually can pick up on things that I think she is going to like, and we do those things. So usually when I go to Los Angeles, I'll do like one fancy dinner out. But it's hard because when you're traveling, you don't want to have to stop and have to do change clothes and that kind of thing. And that's another thing that's really great about Vegas is that you are so close to the place that you're staying at, is that you don't have to actually go very far to change outfits. When you are in places like New York or Los Angeles, you might be out all day. And this happened. Like I went to New York. We were out all day. We went to Central Park, did a whole thing, walked around. Then we had to go back to our hotel, which was in the south part of the island. So sort of like the financial district, Wall Street. And then we had to make our way back up Broadway to go to a Broadway show in Times Square. And the subway stopped. Basically, the subway, was stopped in the tunnel. We weren't able to leave, and it made us late. So, late for dinner, not late for a show, because I will not be late for a show. Something that I planned out far, far in advance. Phantom of the Opera, the year that it actually went off of Broadway. Very excited to say that I did that. But we went to Hollywood. I kind of researched before. I bopped around like, hey, what is around this part of town? Because we stayed next to Hollywood Boulevard. So I found that, so we've already done Musso and Frank's. So Musso and Frank's is a historic, steakhouse that everybody knows about. But we like to try kind of different things. We always try different things because what if my dad goes on a vacation with us and he wants to try a place? We have to know something about it. So I knew that my mom didn't want to drive too much on this particular trip. I still did the driving, but my mom didn't want to go too far away from the hotel. So I was looking at historic places like my parents love sort of historic spots wherever they like to go, or a place with a view. So it's always like kind of interesting sort of working with those parameters. So we've already done Musso and Frank's. So then I started looking at other places. There was a place that I really wanted to try, which was called Drake's. But Drake's is very similar to what like Delilah is. And we've already done Delilah in Hollywood, which is really fun. Not as cool as the one in Las Vegas. But Drake's looked really cool. It looked very like swanky, very old school. And I wanted to try there, but it was like kind of in Melrose, which is a little bit further down from our hotel. And didn't want to go that far. And also didn't want to get, super dressed up for that kind of event. So so as I was kind of like bopping around, I kind of came across this spot that I thought would be cool because it was historic. It had, pretty cool cuisine that was a little bit different. I was sort of like feeling an Asian sort of mood at that time of the day, or whenever I was booking this trip. And we ended up going to the Yamashito house, which is actually this beautiful, like 100-year-old Japanese like palace built by like a millionaire, and it stored like all of his art and that kind of stuff. It has this like beautiful like Zen garden in the middle of the of this like sort of Japanese palace, and it actually overlooks Los Angeles. It actually sits above the Magic Castle, and you have to kind of go up this winding road to get there. And it is a beautiful place, and it's sort of lit up. And a funny story about how we got there. But that's the place that I picked. And I thought it was, phenomenal. So, and the prices, were quite nice. So that's what we were going to be doing. We were going to go eat dinner there. And because my mom loves to take photos, and I've always wanted to try this as well, is that I've been to the Griffith Observatory, which overlooks the Los Angeles Valley. And it was quite an odyssey to get there, because last time I'd been there, I was able to drive up and park on the top level, but I went during the daytime, which, if anybody who's ever seen the movie La La Land, there's a very specific scene in the movie that takes place during the magic hour, which is typically between like 7 and 8 o'clock in the evening, and that's when you take pictures and that kind of thing. And we drove around for about 25 minutes before we figured out we couldn't park on the top, and then we had to park closer to like the Hollywood Bowl, take the bus all the way up to the top of the mountain, and then get out, and then we're there. It was a little bit hot. I do have to say it was a little bit hot when we were there, but not too unbearable. But we got up there, and you can obviously see everybody had the exact same idea we did. So there were people who brought suitcases. So people would bring suitcases of clothing changes to take pictures on the top of the Griffith Observatory. It was a little hazy, but I have to say, the lighting that you get at the Griffith Observatory for free to take photos, it is pretty awesome. Yes, it is definitely not easy to get up there. You have to park. You have to take like a little shuttle bus that gets you up to the top. If it's hot, it can be very uncomfortable. There's a lot of people inside the Griffith Observatory. This was on a Friday night, so it got a little bit crazy. But once you're up there, I would also caution everybody, bring bottles of water, soda, whatever. They do have like a little restaurant, which I believe is down some stairs, and you can actually grab some stuff. I don't know why we just didn't do that. That was so stupid. I could have just did it. But we didn't. But when you're up there, I took so many pictures, and everybody wants like this beautiful like sunset photo that basically the sun is going down over the mountain. You can see the Hollywood sign in the background, and everybody's taking pictures. I would point out to my mom, take a picture, take a picture, take a picture. So this was a free exhibit or a free experience, very similar to the fountains at the Bellagio. Why are the fountains at the Bellagio better? Because you don't have to go so far to see them. I do not regret going to the Griffith Observatory. I think my mom really liked it. I think the pictures came out so fantastic. People say, well, you just went up there to take pictures. Well, that's what you do when you're a tourist in a city, is you go and you take pictures. And honestly, I took some of the best photos of myself I've ever seen in my entire life, which is saying something. So those will be shared soon on the Instagram. Probably share them on both. So Brian_Ortega26 and Concierge Confidential _LV, where you'll also see pictures of the theater that I saw that in, which is the TCL Chinese Theater. But after dinner, after the Griffith Observatory, we ended up making our way to the Yamashito restaurant. And I do want to get the name of the restaurant correctly, because I may or may not be saying it correctly or incorrectly. But I ended up making reservations for 8:45. And this is definitely going to be my concierging skills being brought. It's the Yashimoto Hollywood. Yashimoto Hollywood is the name of the restaurant. But this is where the concierge skills came into play. So it's not hard, to be honest, but, it happens. So we got done with the Griffith Observatory. We had to take the bus down to our car, got in the car, had to drive back to Hollywood. Never had to take a highway or a freeway, which I'm very happy to say that I didn't have to do that. We pull up so we're driving up down Hollywood Boulevard. And as we're driving down the street, my mom looks up to the right of us and she says, what are all those lights up there? And I was like, oh yeah, I don't know what those are, Mom. It might just be like another house. Knowing that she was pointing at the restaurant because the restaurant was in that direction. So as we're kind of pulling up this winding road, and I said, those lights that you were talking about? She said, yeah. And I said, that's the restaurant we're going to. And she's like, oh, cool. And was very excited about that experience. So you pull up, park valet, it's the whole thing. And then we go up to the restaurant. We pulled up to the restaurant 8:35 for an 8:45 reservation. Got there with 10 minutes to spare at the exact right time. And that is how you time out going from one location to the next location. And that was in a whole city. And those of you out there that can't plan going from the Bellagio to Caesar's Palace on time, y'all got problems. Just kidding. That's why you guys listen to the episode, which I really appreciate. But that's why it's important to kind of know your spatial, kind of awareness of where you're going to be going to. And trying to sort of make sure things are kind of in like places. If I would have tried to go from someplace on Melrose or from the Griffith Observatory all the way to Melrose, I would have had to plan for something much later in the night, or reorganize things where we ate earlier, and it's just one of those things. So we're able to go there, checked in, beautiful view over the entire Los Angeles city, the city of Los Angeles, I should say. I was so disappointed though. So I made notes that I wanted to sit in the courtyard because there's also a great view looking out, which we didn't sit outside because I was like, we've been outside all day. So we ended up going inside. They really specialize on, Japanese cuisine. So they do really good steaks, but mostly they do a lot of sushi, nigiri, that kind of thing. We had the noodles, which were phenomenal. We had guests who were ordering lots of Asian cuisine from Washing Potato, which is at the Fontainebleau. So I was really in this sort of Japanese sort of mood. They did kind of sit us sort of in the dark. I'm not going to lie. We were sitting in the corner of the restaurant. But the food was good. We had a good view, looking out towards sunset down the way. And we got to see people kind of walking up the road. I got to say, Really, really happy to see people dressing up to go to dinner. I think we need more of that. If you're somebody who's coming to Vegas and your wife or your girlfriend is dressing up in a dress, spending 2 hours to get ready, doing their hair, doing their makeup, wearing the shoes. Nobody wants to wear those shoes, but God dang it, they look good. You better put a little effort. Throw some pants on, throw a colored shirt on, and just try to match the energy. I really appreciated people dressing up to go out to this restaurant. It was actually great. It's obviously like a very Instagrammable restaurant to go to because of all sort of like the Japanese like motifs and themes. But I gotta say, I had somebody ask me the other day, can I wear flip-flops to the Poodle Room, which is a members-only club? Like, we get it. You got money, but come on, try to match what we're trying to put out there. You know what I mean? So that was the thing. So really happy about that. And then after that, which was kind of a busy day, I did kind of plan this ahead of time. We ended up going to the. Oh my goodness! I totally forgot the first part of the day, which is why I was kind of like talking about like that. This is smooth jazz, baby. So we ended up getting to Burbank. So we landed in Burbank. We're driving. It's sort of lunchtime. We're all very hungry, and we're following following the GPS to the hotel. And as we're kind of going, we're like, I see that we're near the Warner Brothers lot because you see the big giant tower from a distance, and then you're like, oh, like this is the Warner Brothers lot. And kind of remembering things in your mind and knowing the person I was with, I was like, oh, well, this means the Smokehouse, which is a historic steakhouse in Burbank, is right outside of Warner Brothers. I said, well, why don't we go there for lunch? So we were able to kind of use that information, went to the Smokehouse, which is where they filmed La La Land, and they've also filmed parts of the studio inside of there. They filmed parts of Entourage inside of there as well. Other movies, of course. Went inside, had lunch. Lovely, like you just feel sort of the industry in there, to be honest. My mom had a martini. And by the way, the reason my mom had a martini, and this is the luck that my mom has, is that she had just been in Vegas with my dad the week before, and she was playing a little bit. She did it okay on the trip. She did just fine. But she flew to Las Vegas, had a little bit of a layover before like our plane departed to go to Burbank. So she had like maybe 2 hours at the airport by herself. She hit 2 jackpots while she was at the airport. We will not say how much it is. I do know how much it is itself. But my mom hit 2 jackpots at the airport, and in her words, not mine, said she waited longer for them to pay her out than it took her to actually play the slots themselves. So she ended up having a good amount of cash and then leaving Las Vegas with money, never having to leave the airport, and flew to Los Angeles where there are no slot machines. So there was no way of putting it back into the casino. So just masterwork from my mom, the professional slot player, which was so much fun. It just really kicked off it started the vacation on a very good vibe. Like this is what everybody dreams about in Las Vegas, is coming to Vegas, hitting at the airport, doing their entire trip, and then going back home. But the problem is your money probably stayed here before you got to go back home. That's one of the worst parts about winning when you come to Vegas at the very beginning of your trip. So we ended up going to the Smokehouse, and my mom ordered a martini, this blue tequila martini. That doesn't count as a martini for those of you out in the world, but when you win at the airport, you can call whatever you want. But this beautiful, little dainty martini glass, I gotta say, Hollywood knows how to make a martini. Do they know how to make an old fashioned? Absolutely not. They made it the old steakhouse way, the way that I hate, with the whole orange in it. But you know what? The vibes were good. We drank it. We're good to go. So we went to the Smokehouse. really, really fun way of like, this is sort of like what vacationing with me is like, where we have a sort of plan. We've done our research before we got there, but we're sort of flexible enough to know kind of like we can do this, this, or this. These things are open, don't require reservations. Like, that's what I love about like Caesar's Palace, for example. Caesar's Palace is a great, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know there's lots of restaurants there. I can go to the Gordon Ramsay's Bar and Grill. I can go to the Water Grill if I wanted to. I could go to Bobby Flay's Brasserie. You can do the buffet if you wanted. They also have a great steakhouse, Peter Luger, for lunch if you want to do that too. Fun fact, Peter Luger offers free valet parking. Sorry, not validation. Free valet parking if you go to Peter Luger. What do you know about that? That's great. So that's like one of those great properties that is very like, you just go there. You'll find something you need. Bellagio, not the same. Bellagio, you can't do this because they don't have very many places open for lunch. They have Lago, cool. They have Spago, which could get pretty busy for lunchtime. Very popular lunch spot. And then sometime Noodles is open, but it's not a great place to sort of play that jazz. But I would say Caesar's Palace is a great place to sort of like, I could bip and bop and find a spot, So I think that's great. It's harder when you're going to a bigger city like Los Angeles. You kind of got to know the areas that you're in. I went, I knew that we were going to be near the Hollywood area, which does have lots of places to eat, obviously. But we got lucky. We honestly got lucky as we were passing through the smokehouse. I remembered it. That's where I parked. Honestly, the one place that will like really make you feel good about there's places that you need valet and some places where it's a luxury. Los Angeles is like, just pay for the valet. 1,000% worth than just try and drive around and find a parking. So we got to the hotel, we rested, we went and did all those things I told you guys from earlier. And then I ended up going to, and this is where we're gonna spend some time on this, is that I ended up going to a place called the Desert 5 Spot, which I didn't know this was on top of our hotel until 2 or 3 days before we were leaving, which was like a cool like country bar, but modern, very much like Palm Springs, where it's like, oh, we're old but young at the same time. And they had like a live performer there. And I looked up some of his stuff and I was like, oh, this guy's like, doesn't sound very good. And then the cool thing is that, because we had been there early in the day, and I was like, oh, like, how do you get up to the bar? And they said, oh, well, you have to go outside, but you can skip the line to go up. I was like, okay, cool. Like, we're on the side of a street. Like, we're on the side street. We're like 2 or 3 blocks away from Hollywood Boulevard, which is, kind of a long distance. We pulled up to the hotel. The line was around the block. I was like, what? What is this place? So went upstairs, put my boots on, went back downstairs, skipped the line. Very Hollywood. Felt like Brad Pitt, even though it was like, yeah, he's a hotel guest to go up to the thing for free. I went up to the bar, and this bar had like the best energy. So like they were just doing it right. They played recognizable country music. The crowd was like, young and hot, and like both like physically and also like it was 90 degrees outside. So people were like kind of like a little bit sweaty, kind of like, feral, as the kids would say. But it was like a good mix of men and women. Like they were line dancing, but the line dancing wasn't like aggressive. Like I go to Stoney's here, and Stoney's, it just feels like they're playing this terrible music. The music is so bad, but they were playing line dance music in the Desert 5 Spot, and it was fun. It was like they were playing A Devil Went Down to Georgia, which is like a banger. They played a couple other country tunes, and I was like, this thing's good. Went to the bar. This is where you got to read your bartenders. I went in. There were people ordering off the menu. Like, I get it. Like, you order off the menu, it's there. But no, it's busy. It was a busy spot. So it was like a beer and like a 2-ingredient spot. So I got Makers and Coke, which was also really funny because they were like, what? They didn't have Crown. I was really disappointed about not having Crown, but got it. Boom, boom, boom. No cash. That pissed my mom off the entire time we were in Los Angeles, is like they're totally just not doing cash anymore, which is like hard to do when you have a lot of cash on you. So a lot of card. So did that. Walked around, kind of made the rounds, and then the live band came out. Live band comes out. These guys rip. Great live music. It's loud, but like a good amount. Like you could hear the band that they were good at what they were doing. The drums, the electric guitar, keyboardists. People were into it. They were like, oh yeah, like that. And what I really liked is that they were playing like some like old school classics. They were playing Boot, Scoot, and Boogie. They were playing guitars and Cadillac. Cool. They were playing Suspicious Minds by Elvis Presley. Like they were playing like old songs that banged. Like they played Pretty Woman, which is like a Hollywood Boulevard staple for those of you that have seen the movie Pretty Woman. It was just great. And I was like, this is like, Vegas needs this. Like we need more live music venues that have a good mix of like men and women and like people who are just like, we had been working all day and we're living for like tonight. And like, we're just here with our friends. We're here with, our significant others. And we just want to have a good time. Who cares how hot it is? Like, it kind of adds to it. And I was just really happy to be there. Like, I thought the music was great. It was great energy from everybody in the place. It didn't feel like people were trying to ruin their lives that night. It just felt naturally like a cool spot to be. And I think what I'm saying with this is that Vegas feels like everything has been manufactured to be big and expensive and crazy and, obviously memorable, but it feels very manufactured. It doesn't feel like it's from the people. Like when you go into a nightclub, like you go to your table and it's like, oh, like this is sick. Like we're at a table. Like look at those guys over there. But you are kind of segregated from the rest of the people in the pit, which that's where you kind of meet like that sort of connection, which don't get me wrong. If I'm going to a nightclub again, I am going and I'm having a table because I need to be a part of that. But it is sort of like one of those things, and maybe I'm part of the problem, is that it doesn't feel like there's any connection to everybody. It feels like everybody in that bar was kind of there for the same reasons. They wanted to have a good time, letting loose, and it felt like there was sort of this back and forth connection with the band, which was great. And then you could go over to the bar and have your own like other experience. And it was perfectly sized where you kind of like can see somebody that you're interested in, but then, walk away and then come back and you'll see them again. And you don't get that in Vegas bars at all or nightclubs. That's where I go to a lot of bars. But like even local bars, that's my thing, is like, and I don't know, maybe because I live here and I'm like a bit jaded about it, is that like when you go to places like a Durango, which is a very popular like local hangout spot for people my age, they go to places like the Bel Air Lounge, which I don't like. It's very cliquey. It's like this group and this group and this group have all kind of met. They're in their own little areas. We're too cool for school. Everybody's too cool for school is what I'm trying to say. And they're all in their segregated areas talking to their own groups. And there's no sort of mixture between the people. And I think that's what's missing. Is like, that's why I don't like to go there, is because I'm not part of a cliquey group. So I'd have to sort of insert myself in some of those groups, and it's just like not going to happen. So like we do have things like that where locals go, but nothing where people can kind of like just naturally merge together. And I think the Arts District tries to do that, but again, they're not quite big enough. It's still like they're lounges. This place was like a bar nightclub that was happening. So that was great. And I think it really opened my eyes to like, we need more of that on Las Vegas Boulevard. We need live music, because live music is like gets people going. Like DJs, like it feels like you can kind of like tune them out. But like when there's a live band in front of you, like it's meant to engage. Like it's meant to be right there in front of you and like you could touch it. and like you need to give them your attention in a good way. I mean, so it really lets you kind of disconnect from like the world. So I had a fantastic time doing that, and then it was phenomenal. So moving on to the next day, we ended up going to the Academy of Motion Pictures and Sciences, which is the Academy Awards Museum. This was, again, something that we had planned that we wanted to do, or like we kind of had a plan for the Saturday. So this was the day that was planned out. So we ended up waking up. We're going to go and have Dupars, which Dupars, we do have one in Las Vegas. It's at... totally forgot the name of it. I gotta look it up. So Dupars is fantastic in Los Angeles. Dupars. So this is located inside the Suncoast, Dupars in Las Vegas, where they are world famous for their pancakes. But there is one that is quite famous, which is at the Farmers Market in Beverly Hills, or Los Angeles, however you want to call it, which is right next to the Grove. And we went to Dupars. It was absolutely delicious, phenomenal. Loved it. Walked around the farmers market. Farmers market looks like it's really been cleaned up in that area. And I don't know, because maybe it was a Saturday, but it was popping. There was lots of people there walking around. Really fantastic. Little spot right there. So from there, we ended up going to the Academy Awards Museum, which is like down the road. It's like a 5-minute drive. 10 minutes. 10-minute drive. And from there, we ended up getting into the museum, and we spent a good amount of the day there. So, like, it was probably, like, maybe noon. I had been there before. I don't believe my mom had been there before. And we walked around, did museum things. Great museum to go to. It was a thing that we planned to do in the middle of the day when it was hot. It's definitely something that you should do when you do come to Las Vegas, and knowing the time of day it is, or time of the year, if you are here in the summertime. Plan an indoor activity. Things like the Venetian, the shops, I mean. You can also do like the Forum shops at Caesar's Palace are really great to do during the daytime. Going through places like the Crystal Shopping Center is really fantastic. Knowing indoor routes to get to and from places is really important. So having like a middle of the day thing to do is very, very important. If you're going to go to the pool, go to the pool. That's completely up to you. So from there, we ended up going back towards Hollywood Boulevard, where our hotel was located, because our movie was at 7 o'clock. So it is one of those things where you could have planned out more stuff in the middle of the day to do. You could have found and done another museum if you wanted to. You could have had lunch if you wanted to as well. But we knew that we wanted to be fresh-eyed and bushy-tailed for the movie. So we got there. It's good to take little breaks. We took about an hour-and-a-half break, sat in the hotel, got some of the air conditioning, got refreshed, and ready to go. That's why I tell people it's important when you do come to Vegas to build in some breaks. Build some time to go to the hotel room, maybe take like an hour nap, refresh, take a shower, get ready for the evening. Those are important because that's going to actually make you have a better time at nighttime and better rest of your trip, is you take these little tiny breaks, which I know is contradictory to sometimes things that we do say. I'm not going to lie, when I go to Disneyland, I never go back to the hotel room. I don't take a break when I'm there. I basically go to Disneyland and I'm there for 12 hours. As long as the park is open, I will be there. But places like Vegas, places like when you go on like to Hollywood like I did, it's good to take breaks. And we had a little bit of McDonald's, which is totally fine. So from there, we ended up making our way to the Chinese Theater. We got there a little bit early, as planned. We went over to the Roosevelt, which I knew had a fantastic bar. The Roosevelt is actually where they filmed, where they had one of the first Academy Awards. Beautiful building to walk into, which had this very like nice Art Deco design on the inside of the bar. Had 2 old fashions. My mom had 1 amaretto sour, and from there we ended up walking back to the Chinese Theater, back into the hotel. Back into the theater itself. Got our photo outside of the theater, which was so important to me. I didn't take with my mom though, so I do kind of sad about that I didn't do that. Went in, and the theater is magnificent. It was like everything you want from a memorable movie experience. Watched the movie. It was awesome. Went to Mel's Diner, which that was another thing that we planned out that my mom wanted to do. Ate at Mel's Diner. It's completely fine. I would say, I don't want to call it a tourist trap, but certainly something that was built up like it was really cool. I would say the sign was really cool. The inside felt like a old school diner. And I honestly have to say, one of my favorite things about LA and Los Angeles in general is the diners. I think the diners just look so cool and just sort of like a thought of like mid-century modern like architecture or like the golden era of the United States. So I always love diners. So yeah, we did that. The next day we were coming back home and that's what we did. And that was our trip. But as you can tell, like we planned things loosely, but really like kind of kept ourselves open to different experiences, which I think is a great way to do Vegas is come here, have tickets for like a concert or something, and then you can plan around that. That is only the only thing that you are required that you have to go to because you bought it so far in advance. They can't move it. Dinner reservations can be moved. That's completely fine. But just know where to plan and pick your spots. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that rambling talk about my trip to Los Angeles and how I like to sort of plan a tour or plan a trip, excuse me. Buy something you can't get out of, like a show ticket or movie ticket or something, and then you work from there. Your hotel room, then your flight, transportation, and how to get there. So hopefully that was helpful, guys. Really appreciate you guys listening to the episode. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of the week. If you see me out in town, come up and say hello. But remember, keep it confidential.